Hi everyone, Gemma here, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my 2021 bullet journal setup. Now 2020 has been a really good year for me and journaling. It's the very first year that I filled up a whole bullet journal and I've been journaling for around 5 years. So I'm very happy about that and I want to keep the momentum going into 2021. My Good Luck Cat journal is very well loved this year. It's much thicker than normal because I have used it so much. And I'm actually a little sad to be leaving this design behind because I do absolutely love the design still and I'm not bored of it. But there is something satisfying about moving into a new journal and having a fresh start. For those who have been watching my content for a while, you'll know that this is my journal moving into 2021 and I do really love this journal cover as well, so I'm excited to get into that. As I've said, my journaling process has gone really well this year and I'm actually going to create a video about why I think that is and what has gone well for me and kind of my experiences in 5 years of journaling. But one of the things I think that is key to success for journaling for the year is having the right spreads at the beginning of your year. It really does make a difference, and this year I have made a few cuts from the 2020 setup, but I've also made a couple of additions, so I'm excited to show you those. But before I get into it, if you do enjoy journaling, calligraphy or stationery reviews, consider subscribing for similar future content. Right, let's get into it. The journal that I'm going to be using in 2021 is actually the largest inspiration of my annual setup. The cover is gorgeous, it's covered in gold sparkles and moons and blues and teals, and that's really fed into my spreads this year. Because my journal worked so well for me in 2020, I've kept a lot of the spreads the same. Last year is the very first time that I used a dates to remember spread, and I'm keeping it for this year. It's basically just a place for me to jot down important dates. I find that this works better for me than a more structured calendar, as it gives me more flexibility. For the header of this page, I've used my Pentel blue-black brush pen. I've tried to go for more of a whimsical calligraphy style, so I've added flourishing in a lot of my calligraphy for these setups. I have tried creating a quarterly layout for tracking key dates in the past, but having it all in one page definitely works best for me, especially with it being the very first page. I can see it very quickly as I open my journal. On the right hand side, I've done a quote page. I didn't really know what to write here for a while as I'm not a fan of cheesy quotes, and I kind of wanted one that felt right after the crazy year of 2020. So I was looking at the cover and the sand timer, and it made me think more about time and how 2020 has really shown us how to appreciate time. And I don't mean that to come across as morbid, I just miss spending time with my family and friends, and I know that a lot of people have lost loved ones this year. So 2021 should be about appreciating the time we have with loved ones, even as things hopefully settle down. Because the header was quite long for this spread, I decided to add the doodles at the bottom. So I've kept it really simple. I've just added a few gold sparkles and moons, and then I've added in sparkles in some different colours. So I've used the blue-black brush pen again, as well as a lovely rich teal Crayola Super Tip colour. Once I added decoration to the dates to remember page, I then went on to add decorations around the quote page. Because the quote was inspired by the sand timer, I liked the idea of having a golden sand timer drawing, but I practiced drawing them several times and I just couldn't get it right, so I decided to keep the sparkle theme consistent. It's not just sparkles, I added in moons and seagulls to keep in with the theme of the cover. I tried not to go overboard with the sparkles because, as I've mentioned previously, it's much easier to add things in than take them away, so I tried to keep it nice and simple, and then if I wanted to add more in later I could. Moving on to the next couple of pages, the period tracker is another spread that I've stuck with. Having 12 monthly boxes has really worked well for me in 2020 so I'm going to stick with that particular layout. In previous years, I created just one annual layout with 12 columns and no gap between the months. It ended up becoming really confusing and I would accidentally tick boxes in the wrong month. I therefore recommend 12 separate boxes for each month if a period tracker is something you would like to create in yours. To create this layout, I started with calligraphy using my black blue Pentel brush pen. I've also used this colour for a header for each month, along with another couple of colours. So one is a teal Crayola super tip, and then I have a Tombow, which is like a light teal colour. I've gone for a mix of colours that I felt fit in with the theme of the cover. I also rounded off the headers a bit like the detailing on the front, and I've added a box for each month and then curved the corners around those boxes. I also added a border around each header and then wrote each month in gold capital letters. I felt like things looked a bit plain, so I added a shadow to each box using my black blue brush pen. I always find drawing boxes so tedious, and I tend not to use rulers, partly because of laziness, partly because I find that when I use rulers I always end up smudging somehow, so I've not used rulers to create these. But this annual setup is the only time that I tend to create boxes, so I kind of stick with it. It did take a long time though to create this and the next page. It took me an hour. My camera cut out, so here are the almost finished spreads. I also created a self-care tracker on the right hand side using the same design. I put in all of the dates in the calendar using my black blue brush pen. I tried to be light-handed to create consistent thickness, and I thought the blue worked better than a black gel pen, which is what I would normally opt for. I also went over the headings again using my gold gel pen, as the second layer made them much clearer. I finished it off by adding sparkles and decoration around the period tracker heading. This is the second year of adding only 2 trackers at the beginning of my journal, and it makes such a difference because you don't want something that feels overwhelming. You want to keep it nice and simple, and I found that 2 trackers at the beginning of the year works best for me. On the right hand side I have my comfort zone. I enjoyed using this one last year, but I ran out of room as the quote for the page was so large it covered half the page. This year I went for the quote growing outside of my comfort zone. I've made the quote smaller this year so I should have more room to fill the page, and it's really rewarding to look back at this page at the end of a year. It's almost like mini achievements revolving around how you've pushed yourself, and it gives a sense of fulfillment. I added some extra decoration to the words, adding a gold shadow to the word outside and just adding a bit more embellishment to the letters. I also added what were intended to look like petals around the letters as well, to fit in with the growing theme. Moving on, I've created my 30 before 30 list. I basically ticked off nothing this year as everything was closed, and a lot of my bucket list revolves around attending events, but I'm hoping that I could tick off much more in 2021. In 2020, any items I was able to tick off my list, I highlighted to draw attention to them. What I'll do this year is maybe cross them out using my gold gel pen. I'll also add the items that I have ticked off from previous years to the top of the list so that I can see how I've progressed so far. On the opposite page, I just wrote calligraphy gems in flourished calligraphy. This will be the place that I will be more specific with my goals for calligraphy gems, not just the YouTube channel but for my new calligraphy business. If you want to check out my calligraphy business, you can head over to calligraphygems.co.uk. I've written calligraphy gems in the centre because I intend for this to be more of a mind map structure, so I can have a branch that's for YouTube, a branch that's for teaching calligraphy, etc, etc. I decided against adding any embellishments to this page, as obviously if I'm creating a mind map I want as much free space as possible. Onto the next page is my 2021 goals and wishes page. Last year I dedicated this page entirely to goals, but this page I want to be more about things I hope for in the future rather than being 100% kind of productivity based and goals orientated. I decided not to fill this out on camera as not only are goals and wishes sometimes personal, but I still need to think about exactly where I want to take the next year. Some of my spreads from 2020 didn't make it into my 2021 setup. First was the Acts of Kindness tracker. Now, this isn't to say that I don't try to be kind, I just found it hard to monitor and I didn't really interact with that many people in 2020. I've instead converted it into a self-care tracker for 2021, and that is because for the next year I want to take it easy and focus on looking after myself a bit better. The next spread that I've removed, and I know this sounds contradictory, is the self-care ideas, and that's because I tended to forget it was there, and also because I now tend to know what works for me anyway. The final cut I made were quarterly goals. I always forgot that they were there, so I might just incorporate goal setting into my monthly layout somehow instead. After I finished the spreads, I felt that some of the words actually looked a little bit plain, so I added some extra decoration using my gold gel pen. I decided to add dots to the letters. It was just simple and it kind of added in with that sparkle theme. So here is my flip through for my 2021 annual spreads. I hope that you like these layouts or take some inspiration from them. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for similar future content. Thank you for watching.